I tell you, if I got to predict, I probably lean a little bit towards Tszyu because he's been active and he's the guy that I have at least seen.
I would lean towards Tim, even though he's been through some.
Yeah, I think Spence beat him.
As two elite welterweights prepare to face each other, boxing analysts begin sharing their opinions. Errol Spence and Tim Tszyu enter the fight with completely different styles, enormous career implications, and several unanswered questions. Paulie Malignaggi focuses on the biggest concern following Spence's lengthy absence from competition, questioning how he will perform against an active, battle-tested Tim Tszyu. In many ways, this fight could serve as a defining statement about where both men stand in boxing's new era.
I think there's a lot of curiosity regarding Spence and Tszyu. You know, two guys have solidified themselves at world level in recent years, but there's a lot of question marks about the way they're, you know, the condition that they're in as far as how close or how far from their prime they are at. In this matchup, with Tszyu, we've seen him 2 wins on the trot, you know, working on some things, getting himself back together, getting some confidence back together. But he's changed his team again, whether it's for the better or for the worse. On fight.
Malignaggi then turns his attention to the adjustments inside Tszyu's camp, emphasizing the arrival of Jeff Fenech as a potentially game-changing influence. He believes Tszyu already possesses the necessary technical skills, but has been missing a certain edge. Something Fenech's fighting experience and warrior mentality could help restore as Tszyu attempts to rebound from recent setbacks.
I think Jeff can be a motivator in the corner because Jeff was a mentally tough, strong fighter. And I think possibly that maybe what Tim is missing is the sort of go-getter attitude. He's technically good, but he's looked a little bit lackluster in his aggression of late, you know? So if I had to pick something that Tim may be able to work on a bit more.
When making his final prediction, Malignaggi sides with Tszyu, basing his decision largely on activity versus ring rust. He says he cannot overlook how convincingly Spence was beaten in his previous outing, nor can he ignore the reality that Spence has not competed professionally in 3 years. Because of those factors, he ultimately believes Tszyu will emerge with the victory.
I tell you, if I got to predict, I probably lean a little bit towards Tszyu because he's been active and he's the guy that I have at least seen up close in the last few years. Again, Spence, 3 years ago, I can't get that beating out of my head. And he's not exactly had a lot of luck outside the ring either, with a bad car accident and the detached retina surgery. I will reiterate again, Spence was dropped with a jab from Terrence Crawford in that fight. The first knockdown was on a jab, so I don't know what kind of punch resistance he has left. Granted, that could be said for either guy, but Spence was at welter.
Looking at the broader picture, Paulie Malignaggi notes that although both fighters compete under the PBC banner, the biggest storyline revolves around Spence's uncertain condition. He believes this matchup may feature two fighters crossing paths at either the perfect or the worst possible stage of their careers, making the contest an especially intriguing gamble.
You know, listen, 2 and 2 makes 4, right? You use your common sense. That Tim is a PBC guy in the States. These guys are PBC guys. You look for the correct possible matchup at this stage in their careers. You know, it may start to make sense, you know? So, you know,
How do you see it?
How do I see it? I don't know. I mean, Spence hasn't fought in decades, feels like, you know, even Charlo. So I don't know. How do you know what's left out of those guys mentally, physically? You don't know, you know? Obviously, with Tim, there's a lot of question marks. He's just come back with a win, but at least Tim is trying to stay busy and active. With those guys, it's hard to say because you haven't seen them.
Offering his own first-hand perspective, Sean Porter, who previously fought Errol Spence, describes this as a must-watch matchup for both competitors. Porter views the fight as a genuine 50-50 contest, although he gives a slight advantage to Tszyu because he has remained active, while Spence has spent an extended period away from the ring.
Tim Tszyu, Errol Spence.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because that's wild if it was to happen.
I think that's a beautiful fight for both guys. You know, I kind of know this from seeing Keith Thurman try to come back after injuries and things like that. Keith didn't want to come back against a no-name, you know, but he didn't want to come back against the biggest names, you know. This is a fight right here where both these guys have significant names. Their in-ring experiences haven't been the best lately, and, you know, truthfully, I think that this could be a 50-50 fight. If anything, I would lean towards Tim, even though he's been through some crashes of his own recently, pun intended.
Closing out his analysis, Butler backs Spence to come through, describing this fight as an essential opportunity for redemption. He recognizes that Terrence Crawford handed Spence a one-sided and punishing defeat, and admits the recovery has taken longer than many expected. Even so, Butler refuses to write Spence off, believing that surprises and unexpected results have always been part of boxing.
Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence.
I got Spence.
Ooh, tell me why.
I got Spence. Well, Spence need to come back, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Terrence did put it on him kind of bad. It took a while for him to come back, you know what I'm saying? But Tim Tszyu, you know, I mean, shit happens. They both need each other, but I want to see Spence with the great comeback. That's why I'm going with Spence.
Were you surprised how he lost to Crawford so convincingly?
For sure. I thought it would have been a lot more, a hell of a better fight. I didn't think I knew Terrence would beat him, but I didn't know that fashion, though. That fashion was unpredictable, but the win was predictable.
Tszyu had trouble with Fundora, but do you think that was a style issue?
Style make fights. Styles make fight. That height on that motherfucker, bro.
Sharing a first-hand observation, Coach Kenny Ellis recalls what he noticed during the weigh-in before the Crawford fight. He remembers seeing Spence favoring one leg while walking and looking noticeably diminished physically. According to Ellis, those observations added significant credibility to the reports suggesting Spence entered that fight while dealing with a rib injury.
Let me go back to the Terrence fight. Me and Calvin was in Vegas, and we was at the weigh-in. And I told Calvin, man, something ain't right. Errol don't look right. He was walking with a slight limp, like he was holding back some pain, so it might be some, some truth to that rib injury. I was like, man, he don't look like himself. The way he was walking, But he took the fight, But as far as the...
Adding his own prediction, Ellis makes it clear that he believes Spence would defeat Tszyu with little difficulty, expecting him to apply constant pressure, take control of the fight, and eventually stop his opponent around the 7th or 8th round. However, Ellis balances that confidence with a personal concern. Because of the health issues surrounding Spence, part of him would prefer to see the former champion leave boxing behind and retire from the sport completely.
Errol gonna walk through him. I don't want to see him fight again, but if he's gonna fight, I think he'll beat Tim Tszyu. I don't see Tim Tszyu like you think of his dad. They keep pushing him because they're thinking of his dad. He ain't nothing like his dad,
Yeah.
They keep pushing him, but he's not his dad.
You see Spence stopping him?
Yeah. Inside 7, 8.
Do you feel like the Charlo fight will be next because of all that tension there?
Moving into a more personal discussion, Kenny Ellis shares his honest concern about Spence returning to competition. Out of genuine respect for the fighter, he explains that he would rather see Spence step away from boxing permanently, especially because of the accumulated damage from previous accidents and the ongoing health problems that continue to raise questions about his future.
I wish Errol would stay retired, man. He one of my favorite fighters just because of that's gonna always be that accident, the head injuries, losing his teeth, and I hear he got other stuff going on in his face. I don't know how true it is, but I don't want to see him get hurt,
Yeah, it would be tough. It would be tough on the sport as well.
And then everybody would be like, oh, shit, it's the commissioner's fault. Oh, man, they shouldn't have let him. Shit crazy.
Giving his own perspective, Eddie Hearn describes this as an interesting opportunity for Spence, a competitive matchup, but one that carries significant risks. He explains how opinions surrounding Tszyu have changed over time. Once viewed as an almost unstoppable fighter, recent defeats have caused some people to see him differently, treating him more like another opponent on a record instead of the major threat he once appeared to be.
I actually think it's a good fight. I think Tim, for a while now, Tim has been a much avoided fighter because, there was this kind of perception of him that he was this monster. But the reality is he's had a couple of defeats and people look upon him now as a kind of opponent. And that's what Errol Spence's team are doing. But I think Tim's more than an opponent. I think he's a very good fighter and I think he's got a lot about him. And And I think it's a very dangerous fight for Errol Spence to come back to.
Finishing his analysis, Eddie Hearn emphasizes that this fight has all the ingredients to become a truly exciting contest and openly shows his support for Tszyu heading into the matchup. Hearn explains that he continues to hope for Tszyu's success, viewing it as part of a larger effort to help expand and strengthen boxing's presence throughout Australia.
2 years out of the ring, obviously the car crash, the retina problems over the years. And yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, and I wish Tim all the best. Again, not on our team, but with our hopes to build Australian boxing, hopefully he can go over there and get a big win.
Nice one. Thank you, Eddie. Always appreciate your time, mate.
Cheers, mate. Good to talk. Cheers. See you soon.
Terence Crawford shares his own opinion on how this matchup could unfold, ultimately choosing Spence based on the current positions both fighters are in at this stage of their careers.
Yeah, I think Spence beat him. At this point in both of their career, I think Spence beat him.
Continuing his thoughts, Crawford explains that he sides with Spence because his prediction comes down to personal belief and the fighter he trusts. At the same time, he makes it clear that he is not the one entering the ring and cannot determine what will happen once the opening bell sounds. His message remains simple, wishing Tim the best while reminding him that the outcome will depend on stepping forward and performing when the moment arrives.
I'm not the judge. I'm not the one to say, what he can and what he can't do. Me and my boy Tszyu had a little wager on if him and Spence fought each other, who will win. And I had to back Spence because that's what I believe in. But, I'm not the one fighting, so at the end of the day, I'm not the one that controls who win or lose.
What could you tell Tim, or what could you tell him about a Spence fight if he was a future opponent?
I can't tell him nothing. I just tell him good luck, train hard, and go in there.
Joel Camilleri begins by describing this as a massive fight, highlighting Spence's achievements as a former pound-for-pound elite fighter and emphasizing the challenge Tszyu faces by sharing the ring with someone of that level. Facing a name like Spence represents a major opportunity and a significant turning point in Tsyu's career.
I think it's a massive fight. Errol Spence, man, was one of the pound for pound before he lost to the pound for pound. And Tim Tszyu, losers, down, up, and now he's going for one of the best of recent years, so it's a massive.
Camilleri continues by highlighting Jeff Fennick's importance outside the spotlight. He explains that with Fennick taking care of promotional responsibilities and media commitments, Canelo can dedicate his complete attention to training, preparation, and improving his performance without unnecessary distractions. According to Camilleri, having that kind of support system can become extremely valuable during the final stages of training camp when maximum focus is required.
Tim doesn't need somebody to teach him technique or whatever, maybe a bit of defensive movement or whatever, but what Jeff brings to the table is he backs him. He backs him. If someone's doing Tim's head in, Tim changed over the last few years. He started actually talking, and the camera's not for Tim. He started to talk and try to start arguments and that. Jeff will say, leave it to me. Jeff will come in, make the phone calls, don't talk to Tim, cut it out of the way. Also, he's a good self-promoter. Jeff's going to promote Tim massive, so he's going to bring him more likes, more money, and that's what he wants, and backing.
When asked to choose a winner, Camilleri admits that this is one of the hardest fights to predict. He respects everything Spence brings into the ring, but his support is clearly behind Canelo, and he wants to see him come out victorious. At the same time, he understands that boxing can be unpredictable, and a fight of this magnitude does not always follow expectations.
Spence is an ex-welterweight, but it's not even about weight, it's about timing. And Spencer's got great timing and power. Tim's got good accuracy. Well, maybe he'll increase his power at middleweight. But I just think that it's a dangerous fight, and we all know that.
Who wins it? Oh, it's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
I can't really give an opinion.
Yeah,
on it.
I can't. I want Tim to win. I really do want him to win. If you told me to bet my house on it, I'm not going to put my house on Tim. I think Spence at his best was a better fighter than Tim, but I'm 100% Team Tszyu, and I hope he destroys it.
Turning to Robert Garcia's opinion, he explains why he believes Spence decided to return without taking a tune-up fight. Garcia questions whether Spence can immediately regain his timing, rhythm, and physical sharpness after spending such a long period away from competition. He also points to Spence's performance against Crawford and wonders if he still has what it takes to compete at the highest level against Canelo.
That's my opinion, because I think when it comes to boxing, a fighter that's been out for what, 3-4 years and wants to come back, I think it's just very normal for anybody to take a tune-up fight. And I said, look, from Spence last performance against Crawford, who made it look so easy. Spence looked bad in that fight. He looked really bad. And a lot of people thought he was going to be able to beat Crawford. A lot of people thought favorite.
Garcia adds that most fighters coming back after a 3 or 4 year break would usually choose a lower pressure fight to rebuild confidence and get comfortable again. However, he believes Spence may have avoided that option because losing a smaller fight could damage his reputation without providing a major reward. Instead, Spence is accepting the risk of facing elite competition immediately while securing a massive opportunity.
If a fighter is planning on making a comeback and not getting a tune-up fight, this is my opinion, and I could be wrong, and hopefully I'm wrong, because I think Spence could put up some great fights if I'm wrong. But if a fighter is coming back after 3 or 4 years layoff, and you look horrible in your last performance, and you're coming back straight into a solid fight, then maybe he feels that he might fail in a tune-up fight. And if he fails in a tune-up fight for a low payday, then he goes straight into a big fight where he's gonna make a couple $1 million.
Garcia then gives his own prediction, making it clear that Canelo is not an easy opponent either. He points out the challenges Canelo has faced in recent fights, which makes this comeback attempt an important test for Spence. In Garcia's view, if Spence returns and completely dominates, it would be strong evidence that he has regained his elite form and still belongs among the best fighters in the sport.
I'm just giving my opinion. I just think that if he's going straight into a big fight, and look, and Tim Tszyu is also in the same kind of questionable. How much does he have left? He's taken a few knockouts, losses that have been pretty tough for him, and some losses that were pretty bad. So it could be a good fight, but does Spence have enough to compete against the top 150 pounders? Well, we'll see. If he dominates and beats the shit out of Tim Tszyu, then he's back and he's strong and happy for.
Canelo also shares his thoughts, showing how motivated he is to step inside the ring with Spence. He views Spence's long absence from competition as a weakness he plans to take advantage of. For Canelo, this is exactly the type of major challenge he has been looking for, and he believes this opportunity could define an important moment in his career.
It was distracting, but I did try and block it out. I did the best I possibly could.
Mate, Spence's reaction, he put out that tweet. You mentioned it at the press conference, but a few hours later, how do you respond to his tweet?
What did he say again? I didn't really understand.
He said, I forget exactly, but he said something like, you think you're the man, but I'll show you how it's done, or something along those lines.
Man, look, I can't wait to get it on with him, honestly. He hasn't fought in a long time, and I do want to expose that, What do you say?
Yeah, he said, you think shit sweet, do you so bad?
Oh man, he's got no idea. He's got no idea. He's going to be in for a hard fight, because a style like me, it always presents challenges to a lot of people.
Canelo explains the major adjustment Spence will face while moving up in weight. He highlights the difference in punching power compared to the welterweight division and the impact that comes with using heavier gloves. He also emphasizes how difficult it is for any fighter to return after 3 years away, making Spence's comeback against him one of the toughest challenges possible.
Yeah, just harder punches, different gloves. It was an 8 ounce. It's not 8 ounce gloves anymore. It's up to 10 ounce, and just a different feeling, coming off a 3-year layoff. I'm a bad guy to choose off the first go.
He called you trash at one point as well.
Yeah, he also lost money from me as well. So it's just typical, man.
Canelo sends a strong message directly toward Spence, pointing out how much time has passed since Spence was last competing at his best. He confidently says that he intends to be the fighter who ends Spence's career permanently. His statement sounds less like a prediction and more like the words of someone who fully believes he is ready to take control of this moment.
The time is ticking. Father time is slowly coming for him. Retirement is coming up, and what a pleasure for me to be able to be the man to be able to do that.
Greg takes a more doubtful approach by questioning Canelo's attempt to study Sebastian Fundora's victory over Keith Thurman as a blueprint for defeating Spence. He argues that the comparison is not realistic because Fundora's unique height and reach provided advantages that Canelo does not have. Because of those differences, Greg believes the same strategy would be difficult to repeat.
I think who knows what's really going to happen, but using the comparison of what we saw Fundora and Thurman to Errol Spence and Tim Tszyu, that is a bad analogy, son. And the reason why it's a bad analogy is we've seen Sebastian Fundora. Fundora is a fighter that is ascending after the Brian Mendoza fight. He has been ascending. To me, Tim Tszyu is winning that first fight.
Greg then focuses on the biggest concern surrounding Spence's comeback. Returning at 36 years old after 3 years away raises questions about whether the same dominant version of Spence still exists. He wonders if whatever remains of Spence's prime ability will be enough to handle a hungry and highly motivated opponent performing at his best.
I'm concerned about any fighter that's been out of the ring for 3 years. I'm sorry, you cannot be the same fighter you were 3 years ago, specifically when you're 36 years old. It just does not work like that, man. It just doesn't. And so Errol's gonna come back and we're gonna get a rusty version of Errol. And I don't know if Errol's really gonna do Tim Tszyu so bad. I think Errol can beat Tim Tszyu. I think the version of Errol that we saw back in 2018 and 2019 can beat Tim Tszyu, but when we started seeing that less active Errol.
Cobbs brings some humor into the discussion by making a light-hearted comment about Spence's appearance. He points out the noticeable changes in Spence's hair and weight, joking that he looks like someone who has been completely disconnected from the spotlight for a long time.
He just looks very different.
Talk to me. Well, obviously the whole hair, his hair looks completely different. He also weighs a lot more.
His face looked like he was training somewhere in the desert with no water and no food. Like this motherfucker. he escaped the grid and fucking fell off the side of the planet and somehow found his way back home. You know what I mean? My man looked like Moses that got banned.
Despite the jokes, Cobbs follows up with a serious prediction. He believes that if Spence can return to the form that once made him one of boxing's most dangerous fighters, he could potentially stop Canelo in a fight that might become even more exciting than his previous battles. No one expects this matchup to be an easy night for either fighter. The uncertainty is exactly what makes this fight so compelling. Whether Spence proves he can turn back the clock or Canelo creates the biggest upset of Spence's career, this showdown will reveal the true position of both fighters in the sport. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another fight analysis.